Imagine flying high above Mexico. Ancient pyramids make long shadows on busy cities below, giant volcanoes poke through the clouds, and bright blue water washes onto beautiful beaches. This is Mexico, a land of exciting differences. Here, the stories of ancient cultures mix with the energy of a modern country. For a very long time, Mexico has been a place where civilizations began, where different cultures met, and where people have never given up. Its story is like a colorful tapestry woven with the wisdom of native people, the influence of Spanish rule, the struggles of revolutions, and the amazing strength of its people. In the heart of Mesoamerica, great civilizations rose and fell, leaving behind amazing monuments and deep knowledge. The Olmecs, the very first civilization in Mesoamerica, lived along the Gulf Coast. Their giant stone heads are mysterious reminders of their art and power. The Maya, amazing astronomers and mathematicians, built incredible cities in the Yucatan Peninsula. Their tall pyramids and complicated writing show how much they understood about the universe. In the mountains, the Aztecs built a huge empire. Their capital city, Tenochtitlan, was an amazing example of engineering and city planning. Come with us as we travel through Mexican history. We'll explore its victories and its hard times, its heroes and villains, and how it has changed the world. Deep in the jungles near Mexico's Gulf Coast, a civilization grew that would change everything. The Olmecs, whose name means rubber people, started around 1500 BCE and lived for hundreds of years. They were the first, the inventors, the very first civilization of Mesoamerica. The Olmecs were great at carving stone. Their most famous works are the giant stone heads. These huge sculptures, some weighing more than 50 tons, show rulers or important people. They show how skilled the Olmecs were at art and how they could move such huge stones with simple tools. The Olmecs were also great traders. Their influence spread throughout Mesoamerica. They created a writing system, a calendar, and a special art style that influenced later civilizations. They were also the first to grow corn, beans, and cacao, important foods in Mesoamerica. No one knows for sure why the Olmecs disappeared. By 400 BCE, their big cities were empty, but they left behind important inventions and culture that shaped Mesoamerica. The Olmecs might be gone, but their spirit lives on in the art, buildings, and traditions of later civilizations. After the Olmecs, new civilizations grew in ancient Mexico. In the Yucatan Peninsula, the Maya built a civilization known for being very smart. The Maya were great at math and studying the stars. They made a complicated writing system, a detailed calendar, and learned a lot about the stars and planets. Mayan cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Chichen Itza were amazing examples of architecture and city planning. Their tall pyramids covered in detailed carvings were temples, palaces, and places to study the stars. Mayan rulers, who were seen as messengers from the gods, led important rituals and ceremonies. At the same time, in the mountains of Mexico, the Aztecs became powerful. From their island capital, Tenochtitlan, they built a huge empire by conquering other groups and making alliances. The Aztecs were skilled warriors and leaders. They created a system where everyone had a place, and they collected taxes from the people they ruled. Tenochtitlan, built on an island in Lake Texcoco, was an amazing feat of engineering. Canals crossed the city, floating gardens grew food, and raised roads connected it to the land. The Templo Mayor, the Great Temple, was the tallest building in the city, showing the Aztecs' power and religious beliefs. The Aztec Empire was strong, but it relied on conquering others. This would be a big problem when the Spanish arrived in the 1500s. In 1519, Hernán Cortés, a Spanish explorer who wanted gold and power, landed in Mexico. He found a land of incredible riches and ancient civilizations. The Aztecs didn't understand the danger these new people brought, so they welcomed Cortés and his men. Cortés was clever and ruthless. He made alliances with groups who didn't like the Aztecs and marched to Tenochtitlan. Moctezuma II, the Aztec emperor, wasn't sure what to do, so he let Cortés into the city. Cortés and Moctezuma meeting was like two different worlds colliding. The Spanish had horses, metal weapons, and guns. The Aztecs had many more soldiers and fought bravely to defend their city. When Tenochtitlan fell in 1521, the Aztec Empire ended, and Spanish rule began in Mexico. The Spanish wanted gold and to make everyone Christian. They forced their language, religion, and culture on the people they conquered. For 300 years, Mexico was ruled by Spain. Native people were forced to work and were treated badly. People were unhappy, and they waited for a chance to rebel. In the small town of Dolores, a priest named Miguel Hidalgo started the fight for freedom. On September 16, 1810, Hidalgo gave his famous Grito de Dolores, a call to fight against Spanish rule. Hidalgo's cry inspired many people. Poor farmers, mixed-race people, and even some wealthy Mexicans joined him. But Hidalgo's army wasn't well organized. They won some battles at first, but they were eventually defeated. Hidalgo was captured and killed in 1811, but his death didn't stop the fight for freedom. Other leaders like José María Morelos and Vicente Guerrero continued the struggle. Mexico finally won its freedom from Spain in 1821. But the new country had many problems. Fighting within the country, unstable governments, and threats from other countries caused trouble for Mexico throughout the 1800s. One powerful leader during this time was Antonio López de Santa Anna. He was charismatic, but often acted like a dictator. Santa Anna was president of Mexico 11 times. Sometimes his armies won, but sometimes they lost badly. He's remembered for losing Texas in 1836, and for the Mexican-American War, where Mexico lost almost half of its land to the United States. During these difficult times, new leaders appeared, led by Benito Juárez. He was a Zapotec Indian who became president of Mexico. Juárez believed in democracy and fairness. He wanted to modernize Mexico and reduce the power of the Catholic Church and the military. Juárez's changes caused a civil war, the War of the Reform, between those who wanted change and those who didn't. Juárez won, but Mexico's problems weren't over. In 1862, France invaded Mexico. They wanted Mexico to pay its debts and to create a new empire controlled by France. In 1910, Mexico, ruled by Porfirio Díaz, seemed peaceful but was full of unrest. Díaz had made Mexico more modern, but many people were poor and had no power. The difference between the rich and the poor was huge. Francisco de Madero, a reformer, challenged Díaz in the 1910 election. When Díaz refused to accept that Madero won, a revolution began. The Mexican Revolution was a complicated and violent conflict, with many different groups fighting for power. Emiliano Zapata, a leader of farmers, encouraged people to fight for land and liberty. In the north, Pancho Villa, a former bandit, led a large army. The revolution lasted for 10 years and killed about 1 million people. Díaz was overthrown, but the fighting continued for years. Finally, a new constitution was created in 1917. It included many of the things the revolutionaries fought for, like land for farmers, rights for workers, and limits on the power of the Catholic Church. The Mexican Revolution changed Mexico forever. It started a period of social and political change, though there was still corruption and unfair leaders. The Institutional Revolutionary Party, or PRI, which was created after the revolution, ruled Mexico for most of the 1900s. The PRI brought stability but not much democracy. Even with its political problems, Mexico changed a lot in the 1900s. The country built factories and grew its economy, especially during the Mexican Miracle from the 1940s to the 1970s. Mexico City grew enormously and became one of the biggest cities in the world. Mexican culture also became more influential. Mexican artists, writers, and musicians became famous worldwide. Frida Kahlo's paintings, Diego Rivera's murals, and Octavio Paz's poetry were loved by people everywhere. Mexican movies, especially during the Golden Age in the 1940s and 1950s, became very popular. As Mexico entered the 2000s, it faced new challenges and opportunities. NAFTA, a trade agreement with the United States and Canada, helped Mexico's economy grow but also created problems like inequality. The drug war, which became much worse in the 2000s, has caused a lot of violence and corruption in Mexico. But Mexico has shown great strength. It has become a democracy with multiple political parties, though corruption is still a problem. Mexico today is a country of differences. It has ancient traditions and modern dreams, big gaps between rich and poor, and a vibrant culture. Mexico has big problems, but its people have a long history of overcoming hard times. Mexico is a country that is changing, a nation making its own way in the 21st century. It is a land of strong people, rich culture, and lots of potential. Mexico's story, a mix of ancient civilizations, Spanish rule, revolutions, and modern hopes, continues to be written on the world stage.